Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Tony, I hear you have to host via FaceTime today?
I'm Tony Kornheiser, yeah. Everyone can just pretend they're my grandchildren, though, because that's when I normally use FaceTime. And Mike, I'm so close to the screen that I have to wear glasses in order to see the prompter. I can't do it any other way.
That's close.
So I'm wearing them.
That's close.
Yeah.
FaceTime, not
happens.
Facebook. We're on the right path today.
Snapfish. Isn't that what Belichick called it? Snapfish? Something like that? Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Team USA rolls over Germany in women's Olympic soccer. Jordan Love and Tua Tagovailoa get paid, and baseball's trade deadline is 23 and a half hours away. But we begin today with the United States men's Olympic basketball team drubbing Serbia yesterday by 26 points. Kevin Durant came off the bench, hitting 8 of 9 shots, scored 23 points in 17 minutes. LeBron James was great again with 21 points and 9 assists. Wilbon, does this result elevate your impression of the United States team?
No, Tony, not particularly. I mean, I got the United States team winning like most everybody else, like you do. Again, my phrase has been they're going to win but get pushed. This was not one of the games where they get pushed. I mean, I realized that Joker, is on that team. Nikola Jokic, he's still, even though Denver didn't win this past NBA championship, he's one of the 3 best players in the world. But that roster isn't the roster that's going to scare the United States, if anybody does. You mentioned, Germany has done that already. We expect that Spain could, that Canada could, and probably will scare them to some degree. So they're the team. France, the host nation. So those teams, Tony, beating those teams will impress me. Here's what was impressive. The way the U.S. played. LeBron and Kevin Durant were great. They were their all-time great selves on the international stage, something that clearly matters to both of them very deeply. And the U.S. team couldn't benefit from. What greater thing could you benefit from? I guess if Steph Curry joins at that level as well, and he probably will. But impressed overall, ready to say, oh, I didn't see that coming. No, we saw this coming.
Yeah, you've heard me say repeatedly on this show that I think the United States has the best team. So I want to go through a couple of numbers here that mean something to me. All right, the United States was ahead by 34 points when Joel Embiid was on the bench. In the 11 and a half minutes that he played, the United States was -8. Nikola Jokic played 31 minutes. He was dead even with the United States in those 31 minutes. He sat for just 9, and they were -26. So what does that tell us? It tells us, one, that Joel Embiid, you can survive him having a bad game, and he's had some already. And it tells us, too, that Jokic has to play 40 or it's bad coaching. I'm sorry. He's got to be out there. And now I want to get to Jason Tatum, speaking of 40. That's a 40-minute game. He didn't play a single minute. I believe Jason Tatum is the best player on the best team in the NBA, and I'm very surprised, maybe even stunned, that he did not get in the game. Look, and his teammates from the Celtics, Jrue Holiday and Derek White, did. I get it. Kevin Durant was showing the world that he's still the best offensive basketball player in the whole world when he's on. I get that. But I would have thought you could find a couple of minutes for Jason Tatum here. I mean, to me, you sort of have to do that. The problem, Mike, with all-star teams is that everyone is a star, and they expect to be treated like a star, right?
Yeah, Tony, it's a conundrum. I mean, Steve Kerr at once, and I watched his post-game discussion, much of it with our friend Brian Windhorst. Steve Kerr said, one, he felt he blamed himself and he was harsh on himself, but in the same breath, he admitted he had told Jason Tatum before the game that could happen. So what do you do? And then he said, I'm going to get him more minutes the next game. Well, more minutes would be any minutes. So I think it's difficult, but there ought to be a way when you're up that much. I don't want to hear that you can't find Jason Tatum some minutes. The question is, Tony, do you go to that player and he says, I don't really want to be out there in garbage time. That's sort of not me. That's not what I do. That's not my brand, which all these players have. Or does he say, yeah, coach, put me in. I'm ready to play. I'm ready to go out there when we're up 34. So I don't know how that works, and I don't think the coaches do either. Let's move to women's soccer. The United States team cruised to his second straight win yesterday, beating Germany 4-1. The Canadian women, meanwhile, are also 2-0, but FIFA docked them all 6 points earned and suspended their coach for a year for that drone spying scandal we talked about a few days ago. So which is the bigger story in women's soccer so far, Tone? How the United States is playing or what is going on with Canada?
Well, in the United States, the bigger story is the women's national team because they are a lot younger than before Emma Hayes became the coach, and they're scoring a lot more goals than before Emma Hayes became the coach. They got 7 goals in 2 games. In the World Cup, which was so unsuccessful a little ways back, they only scored 4 goals the whole time, which is why they got Emma Hayes. Okay? But on the larger stage, Mike, the Canadian thing is the bigger story and the more interesting story. Canada sent back the coach and the technician, I think it was, that apparently authorized that drone thing. Their coach offered to sit out 1 game, and they said, go back to Canada. You're out. You're out for the whole thing. Then FIFA comes in, suspends all 3 of them for a full year, and as you say, docks them 6 points. So their 2 wins, in effect, never happened. They're going to have to beat Colombia to make the quarterfinal round. And to me, this is, I don't know if it's too harsh, but it is a severe penalty against the players, Mike. And we don't know if the players actually knew this was going on with the drone, right? I mean, that's my position, that it's harsh. It's harsh.
It is, Tony. It is harsh, and I feel for the players. I also think that Canada really misunderstood what its staff was guilty of. And maybe if Canada had issued a tougher, more stern in-house punishment, you know how schools rush to punish themselves before the old NCAA would get a hold of them back when the NCAA mattered as a governing body. Okay, so Canada really should have said, you know what? We're firing our coach. We're getting rid of our coach. We're going to put the blame on her because the players, we don't think, had anything to do with this. And you protect your players at all costs,
important.
Particularly
That's
if they had
concept.
nothing to do with it. You know?
The reason I think it's harsh is in comparison, for example, to the Chinese swimmers from the previous Olympics where it was reported that they tested positive and they didn't lose their medals. And we don't know about the Canadian players. They now look like the Astros. And the Astros knew what was going on. We don't know if the Canadian players knew what was going on. We don't. So I think it's a little harsh. Let's go to the NFL and big new deals for a couple of quarterbacks, Jordan Love and Tua Tagovailoa. Both will receive over $50 million a year. Love's 25 years old, Tua's 26. Neither has gotten past the second round of the playoffs. Well, on which quarterback is in a better position to succeed?
Well, I think right now, Tony, if you're talking about succeed and the way sports go now, even all these glamorous quarterbacks who make $1 trillion, a lot of them seem to have 3 or 4 year windows. And then you go, wait a minute, what do you mean Carson Wentz is like a 3rd string quarterback somewhere? Wasn't he on a Super Bowl winner? That's what happens to even some of the best quarterbacks. Not 15 in Kansas City, not Tom Brady, not a few others.
Not him.
But I don't know. I'm going to go short term, right? So I'm going to go Tua.
Right.
And I'm going to look at Tua because he's got an offensive array of characters out there that seem at his disposal to threaten at least to win now, even though that division could be pretty tough. If you believe that your Jets, if I listen to my dear friend Mike Greenberg every day, are inked into a Super Bowl spot. We know Buffalo is really good. That division's tough. Although Jordan Love is in a tough division, we know now. Because look, the Vikings are going to be better. The Bears better be better. And Detroit's already good. So they're both in tough situations. They're making $1 trillion on forecasting. This is like, crop forecasting. What's the orange crop going to be like come spring, come harvest? Yeah. All of them are overrated and overpaid in the moment. But I'm going to go with Miami, and that maybe is hoping because I don't want Jordan Love to be as good as he looked for a 10-game stretch.
I'm going to disagree with you pretty much right down the line. Automatically, I'm going to say Jordan Love has better prospects because we know what Green Bay does with great quarterbacks. Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers won Super Bowls. That's in the recent history. Miami has no recent history like that. Miami hasn't had a great quarterback since Dan Marino. They haven't been in the Super Bowl since 1984. That's 40 years. They haven't won a playoff game since 2000. Let's compare all these divisions, right? I mean, you talk about Tua, that they got a rollover with New England. People think the Jets are going to be good. I don't think you ever bet on the Jets. Buffalo is good. But I disagree with you about Minnesota. I think without Cousins, they're going to retreat. I think Chicago may be better with Caleb Williams. They may be, but he's a rookie. And I think Detroit is good. So I think both of them enter the season sort of as wild card contenders. But here's what I think, Mike. I think the AFC is much tougher than the NFC, and I worry about Tua's durability. I do, and I think you have to take that into consideration. Let's take a break.
Yeah, but
coming up, how did Novak Djokovic's rout of Rafael Nadal leave us feeling?
And what baseball trade deadline story most intrigues us, mail time, is next. Tua's got a guy named Tyreek Evans, okay?
I know.
Jordan Love doesn't have him. Jordan Love ain't got him.
Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill.
Yeah,
He's got Tyreek Hill. Okay, so that can help you.
That's a good prospect.
This Sunday, this week.
You know who's not having a great summer so far? Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Look, I'm back on the regular camera. No more FaceTime. I can chew on my glasses instead of using them all the time. Let me see what's first in mail time. Djokovic, Rafael Nadal at Roland Garros.
Tony, given that last phrase, right, the case for Nadal being the GOAT, you started at Roland Garros and all the triumphs there. He got dusted there by the guy we know you don't even want to hear proposed as the GOAT by Joker. Tony, this is rest in peace to Nadal's career. It just is. It's okay. You can make the argument for him as the GOAT. It's easy to do. He's in the top 5, no doubt, of all time when you throw in Federer and Laver and Joker and maybe somebody else, I don't know, Sampras. But this is rest in peace, Tone. It's over now. You can do what you want. He may come back and be a ceremonial player on some level. He goes down like that on that red clay in France, it's over.
Yeah. I didn't see it, and it must have been a very tough watch, especially because of the venue where he has 14 French Open titles. And he is loved in France, even though he's not from France. They don't boo him like they boo Embiid. Look, Djokovic was up at one point, 6-1, 4-0, and he started the first set 5-0, and he really wants to win the Olympics, and I understand that. I'm going to tell you why it makes me feel sad. A long time ago, I covered Muhammad Ali at the end fighting against Larry Holmes. It was bad. You know, it wasn't the way you wanted it to be. This is not the way you want to see Djokovic Nadal. It's fine that Djokovic is dominant. If his knee is good, he's still the best player in the world, but this is not what you want to see from them. It's not.
No, it isn't, Tone. Not going out like this there and that venue.
No. What's the baseball trade deadline story you are most interested in?
Well, it's the dominant story of the day regarding the baseball deadline trades. And I know the Mariners have done some good work. I mean, they're trying to, build back some sort of lead. They're even with the Astros now. They got Randy Arozarena, and Justin Turner. But, Tony, this Dodgers-White Sox-Cardinals deal, I mean, that's sort of amazing in that the Dodgers get richer still. They get Michael Kopech, and they get Tommy Edman, and the Cardinals get Tommy Pham. So you got the richest in National League history, as far as I'm concerned. The Dodgers and the Cardinals. Tommy Pham gives them another right-hand bat. They get him back. He was central to Arizona's ascension last season and going to the World Series. Anybody here in Arizona will tell you that. But the Dodgers get Kopech, and they get Tommy Edman, a right-hand utility player who can fill in everywhere. And, what do the White Sox do? I don't know what they do. They still got Luis Robert on the squad. But that's the dynamic I'm most interested in so far with a day to go.
This is the best moment of my life on this show in 23 years. I didn't hear a single word you said. I just watched your lips move. So I'll probably repeat what you say. Tampa Bay is appearing to have a rummage sale. They're getting rid of all of their players. They got rid of 6 players and brought back 14 prospects. but they're on a shoestring anyway, so maybe they know how to do this. I saw that the Orioles got a starter, but it wasn't Skubal. It wasn't the one they wanted. I saw that the Phillies got a reliever. I think that the Yankees getting Jazz Chisholm Jr. I watched him with the Marlins for years because same division as the Nats. He is a really good player, and it brings me to the Washington Nationals. I hope they don't trade Lane Thomas, who is their best player. But we've seen in the last few years, they traded Scherzer, they traded Turner, they traded Soto. This is their move. Enough email. Let's take one last break. Still to come. No swimming in the Seine for a second straight day.
I've been to Paris a lot of times. I never wanted to jump into the Seine. McKenna Whittem plays in an NWSL game the day after her 14th birthday. Wow, that's young.
I'll bet you were really good in that segment. I didn't hear any of it.
I was.
I'll try to watch a replay or something. Happy time, people. Happy 31st birthday, Dak Prescott. The Cowboys quarterback had an outstanding season in 2023-24, if you don't count the playoffs. Prescott led the NFL in passing touchdowns, 36. Led the NFL in pass completions. Second in passer rating, 105.9. Third in passing yards, 4,516. Prescott had only 9 interceptions. He was a Pro Bowler and second-team All-Pro behind Lamar Jackson. And amazingly, every day of every week of every month, First Take still asks, will Dak get his money? Silly me. I thought he got his money last year. But in light of younger, unproven quarterbacks like Jordan Love and Trevor Lawrence getting over $50 million a year, I ask you one more time, Wilbon, will Dak get his money?
Well, apparently at some point, and it sounds like it's going to be at least $60 million a year on average. But Jerry Jones is now threatening to make it like, okay, we're going to win in the short term before anybody gets paid. Anybody, including Dak. Will Dak get his money indeed?
Not so happy anniversary, Vince Coleman. On this day 35 years ago, the Cardinals' elite base runner's streak of successful stolen base attempts ended at 50. 50! That remains the record for consecutive steals without being thrown out. Coleman was the Rickey Henderson of the National League in the late 1980s, leading the National League in steals 6 seasons in a row. He stole more than 100 bases each year from 1985 through 1987. Cincinnati's Elly De La Cruz has 51 steals already this year, Mike. He's on pace for 80. He's the first Reds player to go over 50 steals since Billy Hamilton got 59 in 2017. And at this pace, De La Cruz could be the first player over 80 since Coleman got 81 and Henderson got 93, both in 1988.
Tony, do you think of Vince Coleman or Rickey Henderson as the GOAT of steals? Which one? You got to pick one.
No.
Who you want?
No, I think of Maury Wills, Mike. I'm old. I think of Maury Wills. I'm sorry,
okay,
I do.
fair enough. Fair enough.
That's who I think of. Yeah. Happy trails to another day of swimming in the Seine. Olympic organizers canceled their triathlon training for the second straight day due to high pollution measurements in that river. Heavy rainfall on Friday and Saturday reportedly elevated the Seine's E. coli bacteria levels. France has spent more than $1.5 billion trying to get this river clean in time for triathlon swimming, the men's portion of which is scheduled for 8 a.m. tomorrow. Organizers have the option of delaying it by a day. Tests indicate that the river water was slightly substandard when the mayor of Paris famously swam in it last week.
Tony, I love big cities worldwide. That's what I do. Not beaches, big cities. And I've been to a lot of them, not all of them across the world, but a lot of them. I have never been in a big city whose river I wanted to jump in and swim for any reason. Not any big city in the world, including the Seine. And I've walked along it many times in my life. Sorry, don't want to swim in any of them.
Here's what you also don't want to hear in the same sentence as Olympics, E. coli. Don't want to hear that. Let's go to the big finish.
No, you don't.
The NFL suspended Texans pass rusher Danico Autry 6 games for banned substances. Your thoughts?
The Texans just signed him in March for $10 million guarantee. He had 11.5 sacks with Tennessee last season, but if he ain't there, Dawn Staley told NBC that Caitlin Clark would be given very high consideration for the Olympic team now, given the way she's played since the team was selected? Your thoughts?
She should have been the first player selected. She's the draw. Worldwide, her. McKenna Whittam played in an NWSL game just one day after her 14th birthday. You impressed by that?
You know, Tony, I am, but it just scares me. I'm more scared than impressed. You can't be a kid anymore. You got to be a pro by 14 or your life is like derailed. Yankees took 2 out of 3 from the Red Sox in Fenway. Is that significant?
It always is when they beat the Red Sox, and they got to beat the Orioles better because the Orioles are better. Red Sox are 2-7 since the break. Last one, your White Sox have lost 14 in a row. You like them to beat the Royals tonight?
You know, I was 12 years old. I played in Chicago on the South Side for the West Chatham All-Stars. I would have liked our chances to beat the White Sox. They're the worst team I've ever seen. It's sad.
Yeah, but all the guys on your team are 65 years old now. We're out of time.
Yeah, they are.
We'll try and do better the next time. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, knuckleheads. You can get the podcast on the app or Apple Podcasts. We were good, though.
No more iPads. All right, Wilbon. What was the biggest storyline from Olympic opening weekend?
Tony, I think later in the games we'll get to seismic storylines, things which have international repercussions perhaps. But for me, it's local. And a lot of these stories are local. You and I have covered a lot of Olympics, a lot of Summer Olympics. And I'm going to mention one that matters to me in this household. Stone Ridge High School, where my wife went to high school in Bethesda, Maryland, a little school that has 700, all-girls school, has 3 Olympians at one time. Katie Ledecky, who everybody knows, who's competed and just won bronze. Erin Gimmel, who competed already, and Phoebe Bacon. 3 kids from one little tiny high school in Bethesda, Maryland. Isn't that Southern California swim club? This is an amazing thing, and Katie Ledecky started it. It's just, I find it wondrous that she can have that effect on one county, one group of high school girls, standing ovation and Katie Ledecky and all the people who supportively have made that happen.
That's why they say that all politics is local. And in this case, all sports is local. And I understand that.
Yes.
I watched a bunch of stuff. It seemed that I watched an awful lot of swimming. Swimming is tough visually. It's not the same as track, where you see a person's entire body go through the length of either the 100 or the 400 or the 1500. These people are underwater, but the touch is always exciting. And often it's like 1/100th of a second. You know, it's just because they got there, it's so close. That was good. But if you ask me, I'll tell you an interesting thing, Mike, and I say this because I know how much you like Celine Dion. I got texts from such a wide variety of people about Celine Dion in the opening ceremonies, about her standing there and singing, and how people were tremendously moved by that, more so, I think, in hindsight, than what they've seen athletically. That won't be the case by the end. It's not going to be the case. Right. But that particular moment, given Celine Dion and her recent medical histories, her belting out that song was a total wow. I know you felt that way.
Amen, Tony. And yes, if we're talking about just a single highlight, that was stunning. I didn't know Celine Dion could do that anymore. So yes, to see her standing there in the rain in France, emotional. There were tears in this household. I'm not going to run from that. I found that phenomenal. So look, you and I, and by the way, I know how much you love swimming in person because we've sat there shoulder to shoulder and watched it. You're right, it's different on television. The Olympics is going to grow, and we're going to get bigger moments, and you and I are going to trip over each other and ourselves, introducing those big moments as we go. Starts off small, gets bigger, and we haven't even gotten to track and field yet. Something that you and I both love. But yes, Celine Dion.
Love
cheers.
Track and field.
If I had a glass, I'd toast you to that. That's it.
Yeah, it's a TV show.
Back
it's a TV show. Yeah.
Is it really? I heard that somewhere.